This is our Pampered Prince, Mom's Reflection on Raising a Son. Hi, I'm Lynn Williams, and I am delighted to have you join me this evening. We are having a host of people as part of our webinar or Google Hangout or whatever you want to call this tonight. But before we get started, I want to do two things. First, I'd like to just have a word of silence for those of you that are people of faith. You know, it's just like I like to start things, and a good friend of mine suggested it as well. And it's always good when you are working with groups of people to have a word of silence or word of prayer. And so let's take a moment and thank God for this wonderful day. If you live in Chicago, the weather is good. It's really an awesome day. Thank you for this time together, and bless all of the people that will be on this call, those who will listen to the broadcast after the fact, and we just thank you, God, for blessing us and our families, friends, neighbors, communities, and of course we say this in the name of Jesus, amen. That was what I wanted to start with, so that's what I started with. And then second, I'd like to just introduce myself. I am Lynn Williams, and having said that, who am I? I'm your host this evening, but I'm also a parent coach, a parent, I'm a wife, an educator, and I'm the author of 3 parenting books. The one that we will focus on tonight, which is our key topic, is The Pampered Prince, Moms, Create a Great Relationship with Your Son. And for those women on the line who are raising boys, whether they are very young, infant, toddler, adolescents, teenagers, oh my goodness, or older, you have a special relationship with that young man. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that, and you might be wondering why I wrote about boys and called them Pampered Princes. But if you've ever raised a son, you know exactly what I mean. And that is the son who you could do everything for. You adore him. He loves you, of course. And it doesn't matter whether he's 5 years old or 45 years old. That's kind of the role of mom and son. And so that might seem cute, but you know, once they're in their 20s and 30s and 40s and 50s, that's not what we should do as moms. And so we're going to talk about some of the issues that we face, mothers, raising sons into accountable, self-sufficient men. So when they're small, they're adorable. Wouldn't you agree? Absolutely. Oh my goodness. They're kind of like puppies. That's what I wrote. They're like puppies in that they give all of their love to you. You know, they always want to know where you are, and yet they don't want you out of their sight. However, and moms, you know what I'm talking about, somewhere around the age of 8 to 10, depending on where they're growing up, what communities, what time period, if there's no dad in the household, they grow up really fast, and all of a sudden, you don't recognize them anymore. So that's going to be the basis of our conversation this evening. And I have a couple of hosts joining me. I will bring on my good friend, Terrance Leftridge. We have another person, we'll talk about Terrance in just a second. We have another person joining us, and that will be DeKesha Chambliss Williams. And I know she's trying to get on the line, and so while Terrance is talking to you, I think I'm going to skip over and see, you know, if she's made it safely to us. Enjoy this time. We have a wonderful Facebook community. For those of you that are new to this webinar, we encourage you to go over to it, and I'm going to stop talking for just a minute and let Terrance Leftridge introduce himself. Terrance?
Good evening. It's an unstoppable day, Lynn. How are you?
I'm doing fine. How are you?
Oh, I'm blessed. I'm blessed. Thank you so much for this opportunity to be on your show to talk about such a great topic that you're having tonight. You're talking about the pampered princess, this wonderful, nurturing relationship between a mother and a son. And I'm so happy to just be a part of it and to share in some of the dialogue that we'll be having tonight. So, ladies and gentlemen, I hope it's an unstoppable day where you are right now. My name is Terrance Leftridge, the Unstoppable Coach with Unstoppable Coaching Services out of Chicago, Illinois. I am an accountability coach. That means I help you create your vision, I help you implement your vision, and more importantly, I help startup businesses for men and women be accountable to making their visions a reality for whatever that business is they're trying to create. But I'm also a motivational speaker as well as a Amazon best-selling author of the book You Are Unstoppable: 11 Key Attributes to Living an Unstoppable Life in Whatever You Do. And I'm so appreciative of Lynn allowing me to be a part of this show because boys, men, and their relationships with their mom is an unstoppable combination as well. And in this day and age, it is of the utmost importance to nurture that relationship and turn it into something that's going to be beautiful, not only for mom, but for son as well. Many times we take for granted the mother-son relationship because of the fact that in our society today, a lot of kids are being brought up in single parent households. And for the majority of those households, it's the single mom that's there taking care of the kids. Now, let me start off by saying that throughout the course of this conversation, I'm going to speak to you about my experience of being the son of a single mom. I don't have kids of my own, but I am in social services, and I've worked in social services for over 25 years. And over those 25 years, I've had the opportunity to coach and counsel single parent families that were homeless, families that were going through reunification with their children as a result of some situation that caused the family to break up in the first place. And now I counsel and coach male veterans of the military that have come back and are currently homeless and are trying to get their life back together. And what's key in all those relationships is at some point, at some time, there's an opportunity for me to see a mother interacting with her son. Now, in some of those cases, that interaction is a great interaction. You can see the bond is there. You can see the love and respect from mother to son. But then there's the other side of the conversation. And there's this tug of war that's going on, especially if you've got male teenagers, because the mom is still trying to assert her power as the head of the family, all at the same time continuing to nurture that child and to move him into manhood. And the man, the boy, the man child, is trying to assert his newfound loins, for lack of a better word. He's trying to find his place. He's trying to stake his claim as a boy transitioning into manhood. And now, family, you've probably heard that, a mom, a woman can't raise a man, and it takes a man to raise a boy. And I submit to you, in some cases, that may be true, but not in all. So let me tell you a little bit about my story while we wait for everybody else to join the call. As I said earlier, I am the product of a strong single mom. My father passed away when I was just a baby. I was a mere 1 year old. So I had no relationship that I can recollect with my father. I know he was there because my mom told me he was there, but I was too young to have formed any lasting impressions of my father. So I wasn't raised by my father. I didn't have the benefit of growing up and throwing a baseball with my dad. I didn't have the opportunity to kick around a football or play soccer. I didn't have the opportunity to learn how to drive from my dad. And I didn't have that one-on-one time with my dad where he could teach me all the things that a man teaches his son, that a father shares with his little boy. So my mom had to take on a very big role. Not only was she mom, but she had to be dad. And to make it even more interesting, she had to do this for not just me, but she had to do this for me and my other two brothers, plus my sister. My mom was an unstoppable woman, and she still is today. She took on that challenge, and now, 48 years later, you see the man before you, in large part due to the care and the nurturing and the upbringing and the networking that my mom did to turn me into the person that I am today. And I want to touch on that last piece because that last piece is going to be uh, the basis for the rest of this conversation that we'll have tonight, at least from my point of view. See, my mom also had heard that it takes a man to raise a boy, and she took that to heart. And even though there was never another man in the home after my father passed away, my mom had enough sense to put me in situations where I was around other strong black men and other strong white men and other strong men of other nationalities to give me a well-rounded approach, to give me a well-rounded foundation of what it meant to be a man and what it took to be a man. As young as grammar school, she sent all of us, all the kids, to a Catholic school that was African centered, and it had a strong pastor by the name of Father Clements, and it had an even stronger principal at the school called Father Smith. And those two men made sure that we came to school and our ties were tied straight and our shirts were pressed and our pants were clean, and they made sure that we walked like young men, and they made sure we talked like young men, and they taught in class as well as in the masses that we would go to what it meant to be an African American man and how we needed to walk in that greatness that had been bestowed before us. So I thank my mom for networking with these strong men that took the place of my father during my young years. And she also sent me to high school, an all-boys high school, where they focused on nurturing and building up strong black men that not only graduated from high school, but went on to college. And she put me into programs where I was able to be mentored by male businessmen. I was in this program called Link Unlimited that put us together with Fortune 500 companies, and men in those companies sponsored us and paid for our tuition. But not only that, they invested time in us, getting us on the weekends once a month, taking us to their jobs to show us something more than what we had, something more than what we were able to see, something more that I had never seen before. And it's because my mom networked with those people and put me in situations where I had the opportunity to see more than what was on my block, more than what was on my neighborhood, more than what was even in my city, that I've been able to expand my horizons. I've been able to travel to different places. I've been able to work in corporate America and the nonprofit world, and I've been able to share stages with such great people as Lynn Williams, like we're doing tonight. So it's that networking piece that my mom instilled in me from a very young age that's got me to this level and has gotten me to the point where I've been able to reach out to other people and share my message and share my story so that some mom watching this show tonight will know that it's possible that even if you're doing it by yourself, that you can still raise a strong young man and turn him into a positive, unstoppable man. Lynn, I see you're back, so I'm going to turn it back over to you, and we'll go from there, okay?
What a phenomenal story that is. Thank you so much, Terrance. What I really appreciate your story because from a male perspective, you're talking about what I think a lot of mothers are looking to hear today. And before I bring on our next co-host, I want to just mention that as a parent guru, one of the things that I discover when talking with women and men about raising kids is, how do I motivate my child? And I think what you just told us, Terrance, is how important it is to have not only what's going on in the household, but also if you're a male, having a male role model, if you're in it, so I mean that's completely it. And the other thing we're going to do just before we bring on Miss DeKesha Chambliss Williams is, as we're talking, we're going to mute the other person, the other co-host. Please mute yourself, and also so we just make, as people are coming onto our call, we're able to handle them with the bandwidth that we have. We don't want to have any eruptions of service. So I'd like to have Miss DeKesha Chambliss Williams, who is a wonderful mom of a son, talk to us a little bit about her experiences as we talk about accountability tonight, as we talk about communication, as we talk about expectations of our sons. So I'm turning it over to you, DeKesha.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Awesome. So if you can bear with me, we're having some technical difficulties, but thanks again, Cheryl Williams, for having me on our platform. I'm really excited to share with you all and your viewers my experience of being a mom, not only being a mom, but being a mom to a son. Is there anything in particular that you want to share? Because my son is 9. It's like 9 years of stories that you just tell me where you want me to start, and I will, I'll lay it on there. But I will start by saying this. However, I'm a mom of very open communication, and as a young child myself, I didn't have that open communication channel growing up. My parents grew up in an era where what goes on in this household stays in this household, okay? So, I was put in a position where you kind of had to learn on your own. I never wanted either of my children. I have a 15-year-old daughter. Whew, pray for me. And my 9-year-old son. So I never wanted either of them to be in a situation where they were having a conversation and wasn't understanding what was being said to them. So, with both of my children, my son, we definitely have an open communication platform where I want them to be very comfortable coming to me about, anything. As I think of a story, like seriously anything. So I'm not sure if you have any questions specifically that you want from me, or anything in particular that you would like for me to share.
Okay. Whoops. So you know what? I would like you to share. I'm excited that you have a dynamic of male and female in the household. That's exciting to me because, as you remember, last week we talked to mothers about the mother-daughter relationship, and so we'll have to talk offline about those hormones. But I like what you're saying about the open household, because I understand, and I grew up in an environment where you were told to sit down and shut up. You were to be seen and not heard. And I don't know if I'm speaking to anybody out here, but if that was the environment you grew up in, I promise you today, in today's world of technology, this is not the environment that you want to have for your kids. Because if you tell them to sit somewhere and shut up, you may not see them again because they will be off surfing somewhere with someone else. And I agree with what you're saying so far. So maybe you could share with us what kind of experiences. You say your son is 9. I think that's still the adorable stage, but you'll have to tell me. My son is now 34, my youngest son, because I have a son by marriage. My husband's son is 31, and so our kids are virtually out of the house, although one is still here, and that's another story that I will tell you all about. But before we do that, we've been a little rude, hosts. We have not had people, we haven't asked them to share that they are on this broadcast with us, and please go to your Facebook page and share. Just share. Just tell them, I'm on the Pampered Prince webinar, and we are talking about raising sons. Somebody needs to hear that, and you don't want to keep that to yourself. So please go out and share with your friends on Facebook, or with your friends on Twitter, or Instagram even, but let them know what you're doing. And then please be kind enough to go over to our exclusive Facebook page, and it's called Mothers and Their Sons. It's a brand new Facebook group that I started, and that is to have dialogue tonight and going forward for mothers who are raising sons. We will invite some young men, like Terrance has certainly got some experiences that we want to have shared on that. So Terrance, I know you're not a mom, but I am going to invite you and include you as well, because I think nowadays we are all looking for assistance in some way or another, and there is nothing like being at your wit's end when you are trying to raise a young man in your house. So I'm going to turn it back over to you, DeKesha.
Oh, absolutely. It is a difficult challenge trying to raise a young man. There are some things about young men that I'm still trying to learn myself. So I can only imagine, trying to raise my son, and I wouldn't say alone, because his father plays a huge role in his life. As you all may know, that I am officially a single mom again. My first marriage, my first and only marriage, didn't quite work out the way that the fairy tale had planned. So that's actually been, if I can share that, it's actually been a little difficult for my son, being so young and having to experience that. But, we really do try to be very cordial and still try to do things together with my son. But in regards of raising him, I'll share with your viewers, one thing that comes to mind is the sports, right? He's very, very active when it comes to sport. He plays basketball. He loves basketball. I don't know a thing about basketball. They do all these signs about double dribble or dribble, and I don't have a clue about that. Mommy can't help you there. I love football. I'm going to tell you, he gets embarrassed. I am the mom on the side of the football field yelling all the plays, and I'm team mom. I'm Showtime's mom. That's my son's sports name. So football, I'm there. Basketball, I'm sitting on the bleachers like, go Jay. But what I find to be most difficult when it comes to raising a man or a young boy is those times where, it comes to that point to have those conversations, about sports. A lot of times I can't really help him because I don't know, he gets frustrated if things don't go his way in the sport or if they lose. And mommy can only say, but so much, better luck next time, maybe, block a little bit better next time. Like, I don't know what to say. You know, especially in basketball. He just finished basketball. They went to the playoffs, and I'm like, block? You know, I don't know. So that's where his dad and I really have to partner, because when it comes to the language, there's clearly a language barrier there. He hasn't gotten to the age where he's into like the girls yet. He did come home with a letter though, with a little box, check me, or check if you like me, or check if you like Trey, and all that stuff. So I'm still okay when it comes to that part. But I'll tell you something really funny, and viewers beware. I don't know if Cheryl told you, but I am just like very transparent. Yeah. So get ready. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know. I caught him one night watching something on YouTube, and it's kind of like the King of Heels show, but it's the other one. I don't know if you guys, you know, Terrance knows. It's the African American version of it. I can't think of the name. But he's like watching it, and they're talking about a menstrual cycle. My son is 9. I haven't had the conversation, okay? He's too little. Somebody's got to have it, though. Well, luckily for me, he was watching the TV show, and they were talking about a young girl who was going to bleed to death. And that's literally how he found out about a woman's menstrual cycle. Whew, thank God I didn't have to have the conversation. But I did have to explain. And, you know, honest to God, these are the things that us moms have to do with boys in the house. Mm-hmm. You know, so I can laugh now, but when he asked, it's like, how do you explain that to a boy? You know? Yeah. So, you know, but long story short, you know, again, he asked, I tell him pretty much anything that he wants to know. And I'm kind of glad too that, you know, I had my son last, because he gets and he learns a lot. He has an older brother, my stepson. He has an older brother, so he learns a lot from the older kids. So he really is maturing a lot faster maybe than some other children, because of his surroundings, and because of his siblings that are currently in the household. I'm trying to think of what else. Anything else?
I love what you're sharing so far, because, you know, it's funny. You just made me think about so many things that for a while I was a single mom. I had gone through a divorce. I have an older daughter, so my daughter is 5 years older than her brother. And one of the things that I noticed is that, you know, when you become a single mom, you're responsible, even if there's a dad in their life, and he's a good dad for them, but he wasn't in the household every night. And so, like you said, there are things that come up, like, you know, like, Mom, you know, my sheets are wet, and I didn't wet my bed. I didn't wet my bed, Mom. And I knew that meant he had a wet dream. And so how do you explain that? You know, so part of that, have you had the sex talk? Is right? Yeah. I mean, because if you don't talk to him, even however awkward that is, who's going to talk to him?
Oh, absolutely. No, you're absolutely right, and it's really funny because, like I said, you know, the one thing, my father has been staying with us for the last year, so my father has kind of been like the male figure in the house for the last year. So he gets to play with Papa. He gets to have those manly conversations with Papa, because he's been hanging around with his sister and I for almost 4 years. So, you know, but we give him his space. You know, he still plays his video games. He still goes outside, but it's like he is totally a mama's boy. Like, I have never, ever seen a mama's boy to this power. I don't encourage it, but Cheryl, when I tell you that if I fell asleep, because you know I don't sleep much. I take naps. So even if I fell asleep on a little teeny love seat, my son would climb up and literally find a spot somewhere on that love seat. Literally. And then tell me I need a bigger sofa.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I know that.
My father just thinks it's hilarious. But you know, he's still at a fragile age because he's 9, so he's still learning a lot of different things. His sister has a boyfriend now, so he really can't understand like why she really likes this guy so much. So, you know, it's really funny because I allow him to sit in on the conversations that I have with my daughter.
Okay.
And I don't want it to be like a secret. Well, we can't talk about this because Jaden's not there. No, I want him to hear, because the same way he's experiencing what his sister is going through, like he's seeing his sister get upset. He's seeing his sister come home emotional. Oh my God, what's wrong, Deja? Ed did it. You know, he's experiencing that. And I think it's literally doing something to him where it bothers him to see his sister experience that. And I think in the long run, it'll have an effect on how he treats women.
Most definitely. I had a little brother. So when I was growing up, I was the oldest. My sister was the middle child, and my brother, who was 5 years younger than me. And we were really tight. But like you said, he would defend me to the utmost. And he wasn't always in a position to, but that's what little brothers do. I don't know. I know that Terrance, you need to weigh in. Come on the line.
You know, I was listening to the great conversation, and I was able to think back on my own childhood, and I was the baby in my family, but now the difference is that there was 3 boys and 1 girl, along with our mom. So we all the boys were very protective of mom and of our sister, and I think I was more so protective of my sister than anybody else in the group because we were closer to the same age. She's only 2 years older than me, and you know, I tell the story that I was raised by not only my mom, but I was raised by 4 women because I lived in a house where my great-grandmother lived there, my grandmother lived there, my aunt lived there, as well as my mother. So when my mother would go off to work, then I was passed off to one of the other women in the house. So as a boy, we got to hear all those conversations. We got to hear the menstruation conversations. We got to hear the tampon conversations. We got to hear the hormone conversations. And while I didn't want to hear those conversations at the age, you know, in retrospect, I appreciate that because, yeah, like you said, DeKesha, your son is going to grow up to be more appreciative of how he treats the women in his life when that happens. And I'm knocking on wood that you probably got another 7, 8 years before that happens. But you know, we're in a we're in a new age, and if he's already got that letter, then okay, yeah.
All I can do is just ask for prayers right now. I have walked into a new area that I am totally not even ready for. Between my daughter, she's a 9th grader, so this is literally, we are experiencing high school, hormones, first boyfriend. My son is still in elementary school, but he's starting to see little girls as being cute. Some are gross, some I can play with, you know, like play basketball with, but they still cute, you know. He hasn't really gotten there yet, because some of them are still like, ew, no, mom, she's not, ew, no, that she's not, no, mom. So it's really funny, but, you know, he always blames it on one of his little friends in class. And I didn't write that letter, Trey wrote that letter.
Yeah, and you know, we live in an era where you've got the internet, you've got satellite and cable TV, you've got iPads and iPods and tablets, and you know, instant access, instant information. So yeah, it's people. Your children are going to grow up a little bit faster than what you expected, but the fact that you are there and the fact that you are guiding him and the fact that you are willing to have those open conversations, you're not willing to push him to the side and say, we're not going to talk about that. That makes a difference, because you're setting the foundation that says that yes, your son can come to you about anything, regardless of if it's a male thing or whether it's a female thing. He can still come to you. And while as men, we may not choose to do that first, it's always good to know that we have that option in the background. So I congratulate you for continuing to have that open door. But like I also said in my piece before you guys came back on, it's important for you to, it's great that dad is still a part of it and dad is working with him as well. But also look at other men in his life, the other men in the sports that he plays, his basketball coach or his football coach. Those are people that he's looking up to. Those are people that he's getting coaching from and he's getting tutelage from, not only on the sport itself, but how men interact with other boys, how men interact with other men by the assistant coaches and the trainers on the team. He's learning how men react, and so you as the parent, you've got to use your best judgment to make sure that those coaches and those other men are good influences that you can use to expand your network of men to help you raise your young prince so that he can grow up to be the man you want him to be.
No, you're absolutely right, and we've been at the local athletic association for about probably 4 years now, and his original, like, he played flag football. He's now going into minors, like 9-year-old. So he's literally been with this team and the coaches for about 4.5, 5 years. His initial coach, when you were talking, I was just thinking about a situation where his initial coach is still on the field, even though he's not coaching at his level. He's still on the field with my son, and he's out there from the first game to the pretty much last game, because I think he might coach the juniors or seniors or something like that. And there was one particular instance where, I don't know if my son got popped in the mouth. That's what they say, he got popped in the mouth. So clearly he got hit on the field, and he got so upset, like with tears and everything. And there's a certain point in which I know as mom, I have to step back. And all I literally did, I went and got, his name is Coach Lou. I went to get Coach Lou because I knew that Coach Lou would get Showtime back into shape, and that's my son's name. And let me tell you, he saw him coming from a mile away. And I would look him in the face and say, he's all yours. He is all yours. Whatever it is, you treat him just like he is your own son. If you got to hit him in the chest,
right.
Don't worry about it. I am not going to be upset. That's what they do out there. And literally, he grabbed my son by the front of his helmet, and he pulled his face down. He said, "What did I call you?" He said, "You called me Showtime." He said, "Well, you're not acting. You're not playing like Showtime." He said, "I need you to wipe those tears because we're not doing that today. And I need you to get out there, and I need you to be Showtime, not only for me, but for your team." And he ran out on all the tears that he showed me. Really? I mean, because it was, it was dramatic. And I ain't paying no attention. I don't like to see tears out on the field. But his coach pulled him by his, pulled him down. So you're right. I mean, he like literally changed and went back on. You forgot what happened, whoever hit him. But, I am very grateful for not only his dad, my dad, his coaches. I mean, my son is 9, and don't judge me, but he has a cell phone, okay? Don't ask me why.
DeKesha. Oh, my God.
It was not my idea, sir.
Wow.
It was not my...
Oh,
don't judge me.
I'm not judging you. But wait a minute. Let me just say...
I'm going to be quiet, too.
Listen, no, but let me tell you, listen.
You said something I want to go back to that is key.
Uh-huh.
You said that, and this is what we as women, I'm sorry, we just can't do it. We're not men. I don't care what you say, audience. You might write me hate letters. That's okay. When that male, and this is what I noticed when I taught high school boys, and I was at a Catholic high school, Terrance, I taught boys. One of the things, I could say something to a young man, and the coach, male coach, could say the same thing, and the boy, it would almost be as if I hadn't spoke.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the power of having a male in your son's life. If
Right.
you don't have, if there's nobody, if his dad is not active in his life, I agree with Terrance. You have to, take him to the YMCA and put him in YBA, or, something that has to do where males are involved, because you're right. From this age on up, DeKesha, he is actually watching how he's being coached through life,
Mhm.
not just
Oh, absolutely.
So that crying that they do for us, if we buy into that, then that's what we end up having for the rest of our lives. These men that are crying all the time because they can't figure it out. You get them paired up with some strong men. That's not to say that crying is bad for boys. I'm not trying to say that. But on the
Absolutely.
other hand, they have to grow. They have to develop that masculine muscle. I don't even know if that's the way that you say it, but
But you know what? It also creates memorable relationships for my son as well. I was telling you that he has a cell phone, and I laugh because I mean, literally, who is he gonna call? Like, he's with me or his dad or an adult at all times. Anyway, but he actually has his coaches from basketball and football. He has his coach's number, and he will text his coach, and they love it. Do you hear me? They eat it up. I get text messages. Your son just texted me and asked me to come pick him up and go with us to the game. And I love it because his coach has 2 sons. Granted, I'm going to the same game in an hour, but it's just the fact that he felt comfortable enough to even call his coach and ask his coach, hey, can I ride with you and your boys to the game?
And you can see from that he has a desire to want to bond. He wants to bond with another man, and as well he wants to bond with those other boys. He's at that stage where he's beginning his transformation, and unfortunately, we're again, as I said earlier, we're in this day and age where that transformation starts earlier than maybe some mothers would want it to be, but it's still happening. And the fact that you've formulated some foundations, you put some pieces in places so that that natural transition can happen in a way that you approve, because if you hadn't put him in there 4 years ago, then he might be talking to the drug dealer on the street, and that's who he has texted in. That's the number he has in the phone. Or he could have the bully at the school that protects him or steals his lunch money, and that's who he could be reaching out to. So the fact that you built a foundation, you laid some bricks, and now you know how to step back and let the rest of the building be built, that's a wonderful thing, and it's going to bear fruit for you. It's going to bear fruit beyond what you can ever imagine, just by doing those simple things that you're doing right now and being consistent. Now, probably the hardest thing that you're going to have to do is continue to pull back and allow the seeds that you planted to take root. Because sometimes even the coach is going to do something that you ain't going to like. Yeah, the coach is going to do something
over here.
That's the truth. But wait a minute, we got a question from the audience, from our Facebook community, and I had put a question up earlier today. I said, what is the most challenging thing that you find in raising your son? And one of the audience said, feeling inadequate. So, how do we, maybe I can ask DeKesha and Terrance, how do we help mothers who are out there feel adequate? Because this particular person I know personally, and her son is either 18 or 19. And so, when they get that age, all kinds of things have happened. And so, how do you start the conversation? What would you say?
Well, I think, it goes back to what Terrance was saying also. It's about, and I can speak for myself, because at that point in time, at 18, they're already smelling themselves. They already think they're grown. They already think they rule the world. They think that they know everything. And as a parent, I think what's very important for us to understand is when we, at at that age and beyond, even when your children turn 30 and 40, the biggest issue I see, and I think that we can help as parents, is when to identify when you need to be parent and when you need to listen. Because I tell you now, son, daughter, mom, or dad, the last thing that I would do, or I want to hear from my mom when I'm upset, or when if I'm venting to my mother, is, well, I told you this and I told you that. And I had to tell my mom, and honestly, Cheryl, to be honest with you, it was only within the last 5 years I felt comfortable enough to say to my mom, I don't agree, or you hurt my feelings, or I don't like it when you do this and I don't like it when you do that. Like, those were things that we were taught that you really were not supposed to say because they were disrespectful.
Right.
And I really think that if you can find that level of comfort between you and your child, you really honestly notice a big difference in your communication. Because I'll tell you, even my mother, who will be 60 years old today, has changed. And they always say that as you get older, they'll never change. So that's a lie. There's some things that will never change, but I will not say that they will never change, because she becomes cognizant of what she says out of her mouth now because of the conversation at my level of comfort. And so I can specifically remember a time when I called her and I was really upset, and she was immediately ready to jump down my throat about that situation. And I said, Mom, I just need you to listen. I don't need you to say nothing. I don't need you to criticize me. I don't need you to fuss right now. I just want you to listen to me. And, a lot of times it's hard to let go of parenting role as the children get older and allow them to make those mistakes and not throw it in their face when they make those mistakes. So I think that's some of the issues that, we experience as our children get older, is that we still want to be parent. And yes, you are parent. It's known. It's on the birth certificate. You don't need to walk around with a badge on your shirt. It's a given. But at that point in time, I personally feel like there can come a time where you can be friends. And that's just my personal take on it.
What I do want to weigh in here, because one of the things that my daughter actually said to me about a year or two ago was, Mom, I just want you to listen. So when you said that, my ears are like ringing, like, oh my God, I heard this already. And yet, I think that the open communication, I'm still trying to get back to this mother whose son, like, at what point are we holding our boys accountable? Because I agree, you don't have to wear the badge. We can listen. That's why we got 2 ears. Mm-hmm. And I think as parents, at least in the African American community, we grew up where we had to be these strong women, these strong people. But, that's not, you got to listen, you got to hear it, and then, help them work it out, or just, say, okay, I'll be here if you need me. I mean, I don't know. What do you think, Terrance?
He's on mute.
Well,
Okay.
let me say this, and both of you guys had a great analogy. The one thing that comes to my mind is that it takes a village to raise a child, but you as the parent have to be the leader of that village. Mm-hmm. And I say that to say, I used to work with family reunification, foster kids, families that had been broken up for one reason or another, and the parents and the children would get back together, and many of the times in the single mom-son relationship, mom did something in her life where she messed up, and the kids ended up getting taken away. And once they were reunified, mom went out of her way to overcompensate for the time that she had lost with her son. Mm-hmm. And two things happened in that scenario. The one thing that happened in that scenario is mom would start letting son get away with things that the son shouldn't have gotten away with. And that speaks to what Cheryl was saying about accountability. The other thing that would happen is the son now knew what buttons to push
All
to
right.
get what he wanted from his mom. So everything was fine and dandy as long as mom continued to overcompensate for the son. But the one thing that doesn't happen in that conversation is the son doesn't learn how to be accountable. The son doesn't learn how to take care of his responsibilities. The son doesn't learn what he's expected to do and what his role is supposed to be in the family, because that mom isn't setting the agenda.
Mm.
Oh, my baby, I wasn't there for him. That's the reason why he is right now, and I don't know what to do about it. Well, it first starts with you've got to forgive yourself. And I
Yeah.
don't know if that is your the person in the Facebook's room, if that's her situation of why she feels inadequate, but that's normally what I saw in my coaching with family reunification situations. The mom was trying so hard to make up for that time that was lost. That's impossible to do, but it is possible to forgive yourself for what happened in the past and work from this point right now moving forward. That child still depends on you. That child still needs you.
Mhm.
Okay, if you feel inadequate, then reach out to some other parents. Be part of a support group. Do what DeKesha did. Put them into some sports, or put them into some music. My mom put me and my brothers in band. We were in band all through high school, and there was a strong black man there by the name of Mr. Eames that not only taught us music, but taught us about life and taught us to be better men and live life respectfully. We learned how to tie our bow ties. We learned how to wear suits. We learned how to wear uniforms correctly. We learned how to shine our shoes and make sure that they were nice and clean. So you don't have to do it all by yourself, Mom.
Mhm.
And if you feel inadequate, just reach out to somebody else that is farther along than you are and ride their coattails. And then that's going to take some of the pressure off of you to feel like you've got to do it all by yourselves. You know, men as a whole, we got that bad that we feel like we got to pull ourselves up by our own bootstraps. But there are some moms out there, whether you're a single mom or whether you're if there is another man in the home, that sometimes even with a man in the home, you feel like it all falls on you, and that's not true. You've got the village, but you've got to be the leader of the village and let the village know what it is you need, and then also let the village know how you want it to occur.
Oh, absolutely. You know what? I mean, those are some wise words. One of in my actual in the book that we're having this workshop from, this webinar, the Pampered Prince, Moms Create a Great Relationship with Your Son. Those are exactly what I say. What DeKesha is doing. When my mom and dad divorced, I was in sports. I was in music. The only thing that didn't happen was my brother. He kind of got caught in the cracks, and so he got into trouble. And the only time he saw my dad or my uncle was when he was in trouble. So guess what? He was always in trouble. And that's what I think a lot of the mothers are facing now. I know at least in Chicago where we live, Terrance and I, a lot of times you will see boys who have gotten into trouble, young men who have gotten into trouble and either gotten shot or, all kinds of, it's because the accountability is not taking place. And when you're not saying, when your son does something that is against the household rules, whatever that is that you've set, you must have some kind of consequence. If you
Mm-hmm.
don't have a consequence that you stick with, then, like Terrance says, oh, okay, so I pushed the envelope. Now I can push your button because you really love me and you're so sad that you're not married to my dad or whatever, whatever
Right.
has happened. And so what you find is that you're up against the wall with this son who's constantly bigger and bigger, and maybe now next time he threatens you. Are you serious? Boy, I will take you out of here. And so I'm not advocating violence from that standpoint, but I say start just like DeKesha did 4 years ago or younger than that, so that your son knows when you speak. Doesn't mean that you are threatening, but you are committed. you are committed to his success as a boy growing into a man, and you are giving him resources, whether that's, like you said, I know who Mr. Eames is because he just retired from my husband's high school,
Okay.
Long Ridge. So I know exactly who you're talking about from.
Yes.
But you know, whoever that young man is, if you don't have anybody in your household or in your family that's, you know, a strong man for your son, then sports will work, music, the church, you know, find someplace. All right, I'm gonna let somebody else speak up. We actually are a little over our time, so what would you say, DeKesha, some words of inspiration to mothers out here raising sons?
Um, Words of inspiration for mothers out there with sons, with children. The first thing I would say is to always work on self. It'll better, any type of personal development always prepares you for the next level. And I always keep an open mind, and I have to be cognizant of what's going on in my life and my stressors, not to take it out on my children. So I have to have me time. I have to, be very mindful of how and when I respond to my children when situation arises. And because I expect for them to do the same thing for me. They're human. They're going to have bad days. Every day is not going to be a sunshiny or a sun on the board day. So, I have to give them their space as well. And some people may say he's 9. What do you mean he needs space? But again, after a basketball game or something like that where there may be some struggles or, they win, give him a few minutes to get himself together to think about, what happened. So, I highly suggest that you start with yourself, because I always, regardless whether I'm coaching, leadership, development, parenting, you are the head of the household. The rest of the body responds to the head. And if the head is not all right, the rest of the body is not going to respond very well. So it starts with you, and you are the leader of the home. So invest in yourself, develop yourself. As you grow, you will pour into the rest of the tree of life, the tree of your family, and they will grow and they will develop as well.
Excellent, excellent, excellent words. Terrance, do you have some shit you want to share with us before we close out?
Yeah, a couple of things. And piggybacking on what DeKesha just said, let it out. Don't keep it in. Too many things you have to keep in between your two ears and that thing called a brain. Being a mom, being a woman, being a working woman for some of you, juggling 2-3 jobs, and for those moms that is a man in the house, there is a man in the house, then you taking care of your spouse at the same time. You don't have the luxury to keep things locked inside. So if that means being a part of a support group, that movie, the single woman's club, didn't do real well in the theaters, but it is a good concept. Sometimes, like DeKesha said, you need to take time for yourself. And if that means getting around like-minded women with a like-minded situation where you can vent freely and have a no judgment zone, then I highly recommend that you do that as well. And then number 2, allow your son to fall out of the nest. Don't try to hold on to your son so close, so tight that you don't allow him to spread his wings and fly. I ran across this poem that I just wanted to read to you guys in closing that speaks to this topic tonight. And it says, "There is more to a boy than what his mother sees. There is more to a boy than what his father dreams. Inside every boy lies a heart that beats, And sometimes it screams, refusing to take defeat. And sometimes his father's dreams aren't big enough. And sometimes his mother's vision isn't long enough. And sometimes the boy has to dream his own dreams and break through the clouds with his own sunbeams. So allow your son that room to spread his wings, find his way, and grow into the man that he was intended to be. God put you there to guide him and to nurture him and to give him everything he needs to be that successful man that God created him to be. So walk in faith that has already been that has already been destined for him, and he's already given you everything you need to make that transition for him.
Excellent. Both of you all are phenomenal. I really appreciate the words that you are sharing with our audience today. And as a caveat, as an add-on to what Terrance just mentioned and what DeKesha mentioned, I love the part about sharpening your own saw, and that's what we call it, where you actually are getting some, taking some time for yourself, taking some classes, getting some mentoring, some parent coaching, which I offer. But also join us. You can join us today, right now, this very instant, on the Mother and Their Sons Facebook community. We welcome you. It is a community of people who will not judge. Like DeKesha saying, don't judge my son having a cell phone at 9 years old. Think about the things that you're facing, and if it takes a village and it's just you in that household, you need more people. You need somebody to talk to. And so join us on this Facebook community. Pick up a copy of The Pampered Prince, Moms Create a Great Relationship with Your Son. Reach out to Terrance, Leftridge, Mr. Unstoppable. Reach out to DeKesha Chambliss Williams, who is also raising a son and a daughter. DeKesha, I'll be talking to you about that young lady of yours. And reach out. Just reach out. There is somebody who is also in the same, who has experienced what you're experiencing and has gotten past it. And of course, if you are a person of faith, I say just reach out to God, because that's what I found as a single mom at that time. I am remarried now, but at that time I had nights where I had no idea how I was going to guide my small family into success. And all you have to do is reach out and ask. Somebody will appear. So thank you so much for joining us tonight. Hopefully you have gotten something from our Pampered Prince webinar. We will be having webinars like this with different topics every Tuesday, beginning at 6:30 p.m. Central Daylight Time through the middle of April. Just check Facebook or reach out to me at clynnwilliams@clynnwilliams.com. Good night, and thank you again.
Good night. Thank you.
Take it easy.